question is that this bill be now read a second time, and I call the honourable member for Riverina.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Discipline in the military is critical to the success of the Australian Defence Force. It almost goes without saying, but it is so very, very true. The men and women who don an ADF uniform are made of special stuff, the right stuff. They are disciplined beyond any measure in civilian life and need to be. Rigid training hones the discipline in them. The Defence Legislation Amendment Disciplinary Reform Bill 2021 updates the Defence Force Discipline Act to enhance the management of disciplinary matters within the ADF. These are good amendments. These are timely. Our ADF is always under pressure. That's the very nature of the critical role it plays, and this is certainly so today. Our military personnel, from the Chief of Defence right through to the newest recruit, are also the very best in the world at what they do. I've been lucky enough to visit Al Minhad Air Base, Camp Baird, in the United Arab Emirates twice. First time in August 2014 and then again in October 2019. On both occasions, and having the opportunity to speak to military personnel from other allied nations, I was told our ADF men and women are the ones they want to serve alongside. Australian men and women are regarded highly for their courage in combat, their ingenuity, service, respect, integrity, excellence and discipline. Of course, ADF personnel are only human. Whether they are old hands in the Special Air Service or on their first posting after marching out of recruit training, they still have human frailties. They make mistakes. They err. No one is perfect, and whether it's an undisciplined act or something that requires their superiors to intervene on a more serious nature, then commanders need the tools and the guidelines to enable them to make the right call every time. And these amendments do just that. For a little historic context, and not that ill discipline began at this point, not at all. I'm not saying that. I'm not suggesting that in any way, shape or form, but it is an interesting anecdote nonetheless as part of this debate. But before providing that, before going into that narrative, I would point out that Air Force, armies and navies have been instilling discipline and meting out military punishments for breaches since the start, since that long line of Khaki happened even well before Gallipoli. And it annoys me that we do have some modern military historians, and I'll use that word in inverted commas, who wish to put 21st century slants and revisit and rewrite such things as Anzac legends simply to sell a book. And then there are some journalists and media organisations who are only quick, Mr Deputy Speaker, to besmirch the good names and reputations of our SAS and others when they are only in possession of half the facts or none at all. The old saying, "I wouldn't want to be in the trenches with that person," certainly applies in these cases. The SAS does so much to protect this nation and to assist other nations. They are the best of the best. Some of the media coverage attempting to tarnish the names of some soldiers because of a song played at a funeral is, quite frankly, beyond the pale. It's so typical of a society prone to catastrophise the very, very smallest of issues. And those of us fortunate enough to have never experienced the physical and mental pressure of a soldier involved in active combat and the subsequent lifelong bonds held between brothers in arms and sisters in arms should not be so quick to assume the worst in people or throw wild accusations which affect the whole instead of perhaps a few. As I stated, there is a fascinating piece in relation to the military and disciplinary procedures from way back, although it seems like only yesterday. In my local newspaper, the Daily Advertiser, and I was working there at the time, the edition of Thursday, 14th of February 1985, there was an article highlighting the fact that women had just entered the recruit training at the 1st Recruit Training Battalion, Kapuka, Blamey Barracks, the home of the soldier. And the article said, the first Australian women to train alongside men in the Army arrived at Kapooka last night. 2 buses, one from Sydney and one from Melbourne, delivered 48 new recruits who will go through an intensive training period for the next 11 weeks. The women, whose average age is 18, will undergo virtually the same training as men. The only difference is that hand grenade throwing has been completely ruled out because that is combat related, and there are slight variations on physical requirements. That, I'm thankful to say, Mr Deputy Speaker, has changed. Next week, this is the article continues, next week the new recruits will rise at 5:45 a.m. to start training drills, field and bush exercises and weapon handling. The Kapooka recruits form Delta Company, and yesterday's arrivals will be known as 31 Platoon. Recruits have come from all over Australia and have signed for 3- or 6-year terms. The first busload from Melbourne arrived at 5:50 p.m. and the girls shuffled out to prepare for their first taste of Army life, standing at attention during a roll call. The second bus load arrived from Sydney at 7:20 p.m. After the roll call, the women dragged heavy suitcases to the barracks, their new home for the next 11 weeks. That period will not be an easy one, according to Royal Australian Army Ordnance Corps manager Bob Antonius. He said training and night study will mean a 17-hour day for the new recruits, and there wouldn't be time for them to fraternise. Although the women will be billeted in a barracks less than 50 metres from male soldiers, a hands-off warning has been issued. An officer spoken to last night would not specify what punishments would be carried out for those disobeying the warning, but agreed guilty male soldiers could be in a great deal of trouble. Indeed, Mr Deputy Speaker. Senior Army officers did not allow us, this is the newspaper, to speak to the recruits when they arrived last night. However, one recruit spoken to in Melbourne yesterday was enthusiastic about her new career. Helen Jones, 20, from the Victorian town of Portsea, signed on for 6 years. Recruit Jones has had 18 months' experience in the Army Reserve. I realised I wanted more after being in the Army Reserve, she said. Delta Company will be under the command of Lieutenant Jill Curry, and 31 Platoon Leader is Sergeant Gail Leggy. And after the 11-week training period, the recruits will decide which Army trade they will undertake. The next batch of recruits, 32 Platoon, will arrive in 4 weeks. One wonders what happened to those recruits, but it was a proud day when those women arrived at Kapooka. And indeed, the little anecdote about the fact that there was going to be very strict rules enforced as far as fraternising, as the journalist Steve Connolly called it, indeed, no doubt, was carried out, because Kapooka has always been the home of the soldier, but the home of discipline as well. And I'm proud to say it's in my electorate of Wagga Wagga, and it does a great job. And successive commanders have ensured that the discipline has been what it needs to be at Kapooka. And indeed, this amendment improves the management of disciplinary issues in the entire Australian Defence Force. And the Act enables, of course, commanders in the ADF to ensure and enforce military discipline and ensure the safety and well-being of servicemen and women. I'm pleased that the amendment will result in a military discipline system which is going to be more efficient and easier to understand, and perhaps most importantly to use. It will reduce needless delays while being fair to those involved. And this was a point made by the member for Stirling. And in his contribution to this debate on Monday, he talked about the fact that it will result in a system that will be far easier to use, and it will reduce unnecessary delays. And he should know, having served in the Australian Army, he would know this. He said this is important because if somebody has a pending infringement hanging over them for months or potentially longer, then it can impact certainly their morale and that of the rest of the unit, and their ability to attend promotional courses and other training activities as well. So it's really important that we get in and deal with infringements quickly when they occur. And morale is something that is so critical in the ADF. And I do acknowledge not only the member for Stirling but other members in this place who have served, parliamentarians who have come here having given service in the military. I commend them, and we say always thank you to them and to all of those who have served, who are serving, and those who indeed will potentially pull on a uniform in the future. Now, Mr Deputy Speaker, the majority of breaches covered by the DFDA are of a uniquely military nature. They range from offences which are operational matters, indeed right through to being late for work, and sometimes late for work can be a serious breach as well, unlike other occupations where you could be 5 or 10 minutes late in the defence. This can be a critical error. But serious criminal offences or other illegal conduct can be referred to civilian authorities, such as the civilian police. It is critical that breaches of discipline are resolved expeditiously and fairly to maintain morale, as the member for Stirling pointed out, to ensure good order and fighting capability. We need to, of course, at all times maintain an operationally capable Defence Force with the absolutely highest levels of professional competence, and we do, commitment, and we have, and discipline both on and off duty. And as I say, we can be very proud, and we are, of those people who pull on a uniform, because the service and sometimes the sacrifice they make is the ultimate. And what they do for and on behalf of our nation in difficult times is beyond measure. And we should be very thankful, not just on Remembrance Day, Armistice Day, not just on Anzac Day, but every single day. And this will provide commanders within the ADF the necessary tools to better carry out their mission. The bill will reform the ADF's military discipline system, and in particular, and this is important, the lower-level summary system and disciplinary infringement scheme, so that we do have that ability to get these matters resolved quickly, because resolving these matters quickly is what it is all about. It will make it easier to use the Act when dealing with minor discipline matters, particularly when deployed on operations, when members are out in the field and things are alleged that they can be resolved quickly and amicably, and everybody can get on with what they need to do. And it will build on what is working well, and that's important. The disciplinary infringement scheme, by enabling a broader range of minor breaches of military discipline to be managed faster and simply as disciplinary infringements, rather than service offences where their intricate adversarial court-like procedures currently apply. This will also provide a more formalised and better structured discipline hierarchy based on the seriousness of the offending, available punishments, rank of the individual, and that's critical too, and the seniority of the discipline authority. As well, the changes introduce several new service offences relevant to the modern ADF. And the new service offences to be introduced include, I'm pleased to say, cyberbullying and the related offence of failure to comply with a removal order concerning cyberbullying material, failing to perform a duty or an activity, and failing to notify a change in circumstances when in receipt of a benefit or entitlement will be introduced. And that cyberbullying aspect of this amendment is so critical, because we are in a new era where mobile phones can be used, dare I say, in the context of this debate, as weapons. And people do not need to have some things filmed and then shared amongst colleagues, and it makes it so much more critical when you are in either close quarters, close confines with work colleagues, as the unique nature of military service provides. And so I'm very pleased, and I know that the parliament will be also keen to see this measure adopted as part of this amendment. Now, the changes build on the very successful and highly regarded disciplinary infringement scheme. They will provide more opportunity for our people to choose to have a wider range of minor breaches of discipline dealt with in a less confronting manner than before the more formal court-like and adversarial summary authority tribunals. And this reduces stress on all involved. So what we want and what we are going to get through these amendments is a better discipline system, managed well, done properly, and I commend the amendment to the House.